Already, just a quick disclaimer for everybody watching out there. I do not have a problem with Phil Jackson the man, and I do not have a problem with Phil Jackson the Hall of Fame coach. My issue is Phil Jackson the GM. Also, one more thing I have to add. If anybody watching right now thinks that he did an amazing job as a GM, or you think that Phil Jackson is this person that could do no wrong and that he can walk in water like Jesus Christ, or you get offended easily, or you get easily triggered, this video may not be for you. So you guys might want to click up the video right now. And as for the mature audience still watching, let's get down with the countdown, shall we? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Paulier Fantone Reaction Central. This is your host with the most, not really, but Paulier Fantone. Anyways, guys, this is episode number 1 of a series I intend to make a lot more vids for. And this is 20 reasons why Phil Jackson got fired as GM of the New York Knicks. This is going to be a little bit of a long video, guys. I haven't really made a video this long, so just hang in there. Reason number 1, 20 reasons why Phil Jackson got fired as GM of the New York Knicks. Stupid trades. Stupid trades that didn't make any sense and eventually hurt the team in the long run. Trading away key pieces of the roster like J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert, Tyson Chandler, and point guard Raymond Felton, and received squat in return. One of the very first moves Phil Jackson made as GM of the Knicks, we shipped off the formal Defensive Player of the Year Tyson Chandler and point guard Raymond Felton on January 26, 2014 for nobodies like Samuel Dillenberg, Shane Larkin, and Jose Calderon. This move, outside of needing draft picks, this trade did fuck all for the Knicks. Yes, I understand some parts it was kind of a salary dump. And however, Dillenberg, he was the first to go, lasting just one season. He averaged 4 points and 5.3 rebounds in just 32 games. And the guy's trash. As of December 17th, 2015, he still plays in the CBA, the Chinese Basketball Association, for those who don't know, because he couldn't hold down the job at the NBA. As for Larkin, I didn't really have a big problem with Larkin, but if memory serves me correctly, he had just 2 notable games as a Knick. And as of August 10th, 2016, he still plays in the Spanish League because he, along with Dillenberg, couldn't hold down a job in the NBA. And as for Calderon, he was an injury-prone bum who was paid about in a ballpark of $7 million during his Knicks run. His last season with the Knicks, he averaged 7.7 points and about 7.7 assists that year. Let that settle in for a second. Jackson had a chance to trade for a guy like Jay Crowder, a great piece that actually could help the franchise win. But knowing Jackson, he would have just shipped off Crowder's contract in a heartbeat. And however, Jackson opted to make the trade with the Dallas Mavericks instead, hurting this Knicks team in the long run. This trade alone, in my personal opinion, crippled the Knicks. But baby Jesus, Phil Jackson wasn't done yet. On January 15th, 2015, Jackson goes on another salary/type of move. He ships off J.R. Smith and my main man, Iman Shumpert, and received Lance Thomas, Alex Kurt, a man I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his last name, and a future second-round pick from the Cleveland Cavaliers. As of this date right now, Lance Thomas is the only player still with the New York Knicks. Reason number 2, and I know you guys were expecting this reason. He hired Derek Fisher as head coach, even though Fisher had zero experience as a coach, let alone a head coach in the NBA. Jackson told the reporters after bringing in Fisher as head coach that the Knicks were going to be a playoff team. And the team had the worst season in franchise history. It was a major fail. In his year and a half as Knicks head coach, Fisher had no clue what he was doing by making mismatch mistakes and mismatching players against opposing teams. It was a painful, epic fail the whole time, or better yet, it was a huge dumpster fire. Reason number 3. Phil Jackson was dead set on pushing an old, outdated triangle offense, no matter how many times it failed the franchise. And Phil flat out was running the franchise like it was still 1994, refusing to evolve at all and poorly adapting to today's style of basketball. And however, to his credit, we all know this. Phil Jackson achieved amazing success as coaching the triangle offense, and it led the man to 11 championships. But as a head coach, I have to point this out. Phil was fortunate to have Hall of Famers like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman. And Jesus Christ, we might as well throw in Shaq and Kobe because they're going to be future Hall of Famers. Plus, the man had other greats on his roster, like Robert Horry, Ron Harper, Glenn Rice, Horace Grant, Paul Gasol, Tony Kukoc. The names go on. So these great teams are going to make a major impact regardless. I'm even going to go one step further by saying the 72-win Chicago Bulls team in the 95-96 season could have had Fred Flintstone as the head coach, SpongeBob SquarePants, Donald Duck, and Patrick Starr as on the coaching staff. And guess what, Phil? That Bulls team probably could have won it all. Anyways, guys, I'm sorry, I went a little off topic there. Anyways, Phil Jackson had the intentions of bringing in Derek Fisher because Phil believed that Fisher was going to duplicate the same style of offense. But we all know how that turned out, didn't we? As it turned out being a huge failure. And it made the New York Knicks a laughingstock in the process. Just looking at the way Coach Fisher coached the triangle, he had no real idea what he was doing. You know, the Knicks have been exposed for a better part of 3 years with the triangle, and so far it hasn't done fuck all for the franchise. But it did help make it worse. Reason number 4, he spent way too much time on Twitter when he should have been doing his job trying to make the franchise better. But of course, he takes Twitter to bash what was to date his best player in Carmelo Anthony. Now, I don't want to beat a dead horse over the head, or however you say that. But the man, he didn't sit down with Melo man-to-man or face-to-face to try to hash it out like a normal GM would. But instead, Phil Jackson tweets all his garbage for the whole world to see. Nice going there, Phil. Reason number 5. He was gay for Kurt Rambis, to the point where he wanted to make the man the head coach of the team. Now, personally, I don't really have any problem with Kurt Rambis as an assistant coach. However, his coaching resume is trash currently with a 41-win, 151-loss track record. Sure, I can understand the man has coached some pretty piss-poor teams as a head coach, but these kind of results are not going to get it done. Not if you want to be taken seriously, that is. Now, to add insult to injury, Jackson decided that it was the right move to make Rambis the Knicks defensive coordinator, further proving to me how out of touch Phil Jackson really is/was. Reason number 6. Goes out of his way to give Carmelo Anthony a huge contract extension a few seasons ago, then proceeds to turn on the man, drag his name through the mud in the process. And before Phil opened his big mouth on Twitter and had this agenda to force Melo out of town, the Knicks were actually doing pretty well. They were winning games, and they were actually over the 500 mark. Anyways, to his credit, Carmelo Anthony, while he may not be a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan, he doesn't flat out deserve the kind of treatment Phil Jackson was giving him. Melo is a great player. He could damn well be a Hall of Famer. He's clutch. He's an Olympic gold medalist. He's a multiple-time All-Star. He won a scoring title. Listen, guys, I'm not the biggest Carmelo Anthony fan by no stretch of the imagination, but as a Knicks fan, I'm smart enough to realize that last season the Knicks weren't winning anywhere close to 31 games without Carmelo Anthony and Derrick Rose on the roster. It's plain and simple as that. During Phil's tenure, especially last season, Carmelo Anthony had to go to work every day knowing that his boss wanted him out of town and got booed in the Garden because of Phil Jackson. And when it comes to Phil Jackson, when I see this kind of stupidity, he either doesn't care or he just doesn't know how to run a franchise properly. With this type of mindset, when he treats his players the way he was doing with Melo, the bashing on social media, the unnecessary criticism which led to all this drama in the first place, or the way he would try to undermine you to the reporters by saying the stupid shit he was saying, like, you'd be better off chasing the ring elsewhere. Now, granted, he didn't word it like that. I'm just paraphrasing. But seriously, tell me right now that guys like Chris Paul or Paul George or the Kawhi Leonards out there would even consider for a second signing with the Knicks with this bum as GM. Because they got to be looking at the situation and seeing how he was treating Carmelo Anthony and probably saying to themselves something along the lines of, we don't need this kind of backstabbing guy as a GM. And they're probably, everybody's probably laughing at this franchise and how they were doing business while Phil Jackson was around. Guess what, Phil? Kristaps Porzingis. He's not impressed by this either. I know this isn't anything new. He was probably looking at the scenario and saying, God, this could be me in 5 years. Or hell, it could have been me tomorrow with this bum. Now, before this whole Jackson wants Melo out of town saga even started, before the 2016-17 season even started, free agent Kevin Durant interviewed every team out there, and Durant lived or stayed about 90 miles away from the Knicks. And the Knicks didn't even get a token interview from KD. That's how bad things were. And this whole mess with Jackson, let's face facts here. The Knicks were screwed. Reason number 7. Trying to push Carmelo Anthony out of town to the point where at the time it seemed personal. Even though Phil was trying to trade Carmelo, he devalued him in the long run and hurt his overall trade value. Enough said. And reason number 8, giving an old, beat-up, injury-prone, best years far behind him player in Joakim Noah a 4-year, $72 million contract, one that Noah will probably never live up to. In year number 1, Noah averaged 5 points and 8.5 rebounds per game in just 46 games. And honestly, guys, this signing had bust written all over it. But Phil, he just couldn't help himself. Unless Noah was to say retire within the next year, the Knicks would be forced to pay this bum $72 million total. Because let's be real here, guys, it would be a miracle if another team would be dumb enough to pick up Noah's horrible contract via trade. So, let's face facts here, guys. We're stuck with him. This signing had to go down as one of the worst player signings in sports history. Need I bring up he's going to be suspended for like the first 15 games of next season? Reason number 9. He's gay for an overrated Austin Rivers and was willing to trade his superstar and team-leading scorer in Carmelo Anthony and Derrick Rose on 2 different occasions. For a player who's currently a backup point guard for the Los Angeles Clippers. Rivers played 6 seasons in the NBA so far, and his best season to date has an average of 12 points a game and a dismal 2.8 assists. And this is the dude you'd give up Melo or D Rose for? Really, Phil? Reason number 10. Underutilizing guys on the roster. 2 good examples in my mind would be Langston Galloway and Jared Grant. Now, when it came to Galloway, I understand he was kind of hit and miss with a lot of you guys, but to both their credit, Galloway and Grant had hustle that was instantly noticed by the fans at the Garden. Both men made big shots. They had great confidence. But for some reasons, Jackson said that the older, more injury-riddled Jose Calderon was going to be the next starting point guard, instead of the flourishing Grant. A little bit more time, both men could have been great pieces to the Knicks roster in my mind. However, Phil did ship off Grant to the Chicago Bulls for Derrick Rose with a few more pieces on both sides, and a move the Knicks needed to make to upgrade the point guard position. But, like, Galloway slipped right through his fingers. Side note, Galloway may never have been a solid starter for the Knicks, but he still could have been a solid bench player. Just my 2 cents, guys. Reason number 11. Bringing in and keeping Jose Calderon for so long. I seriously have no fucking clue what Phil Jackson ever saw in Calderon to keep him so long as he did. Now, however, there were still plenty of other point guards the Knicks could have went after. At one point, the Detroit Pistons even expressed interest in dealing Brandon Jennings, a prime Brandon Jennings. But of course, Phil Jackson passed on that offer. The time that Calderon's been with the Knicks, he's been hurt for the majority of his Knicks run. When he was healthy, his production was far from stellar and just wasn't worth the damn money. Reason number 12. Refusing to put his ego aside and foolishly only interviewing people he knew for the New York Knicks head coach position. Instead doing what would have been best for the team, trying to, I don't know, maybe set up an interview for, say, a Tom Thibodeau or a Mark Jackson or maybe a Jeff Van Gundy, or hell, even maybe a Patrick Ewing. But no, none of these guys were even considered by Phil Jackson. As we all know, Phil wanted his good friend Kurt Rambis to be the head coach of the team, but nobody was really on board with that idea, for the most part anyways. And cooler heads did prevail, even though in the end, Phil Jackson wound up hiring Jeff Hornacek. And while I don't really mind Jeff Hornacek as a coach, look where that's getting us. Reason number 13. He's a flip-flopper with no direction. He never had any real plan for this franchise when he took over as president outside of running the triangle and telling people about his 11 championship rings, referring to it over and over again. But as a result of his constant flip-flopping, the team has done nothing but dropped L's. It is now on his 3rd head coach since 2014. Enough said. Reason number 14. Bringing in players via trade or free agency like Aaron Afalo, Brandon Jennings, Courtney Lee, Derrick Rose, and the names go on. And yet they don't seem to fit the style of play Phil wants. He brings in players that don't fit the triangle. If you're really not sure or flat out have no idea the kind of players you need for the triangle, then maybe it's time to give up on the triangle. Just saying. Reason number 15. Phil Jackson saying Carmelo should chase a ring elsewhere, pretty much telling all the Knicks fans out there that the franchise isn't winning fuck all anytime soon, also implying that the franchise needs a rebuild. Sure, that isn't much of an exaggeration, but haven't we been down this road since day one with this guy? Each and every year for the last 3 years, it seems like Phil and the Knicks go back to square one. And newsflash, it was always going to be like that with this guy. If there was anybody delusional enough to believe that this miracle turnaround was going to happen, well, you guys were going to be waiting a long time. How can any of us expect that this franchise was going to really get back on track and contend in the East? And reason number 16. Entertaining offers for a franchise piece in Kristaps Porzingis. Even if Phil wasn't super serious about dealing Porzingis, it still didn't help matters for Phil at all. And all because of why? Just because KP skipped his exit interview? And reason number 17. Phil Jackson only lasted as long as he did with the Knicks was because Knicks owners Knicks owner James Dolan was a delusional fat bastard who made just as many out-of-touch, piss-poor decisions as Phil made as a GM. Despite all of Phil Jackson's mistakes and all of his failures, James Dolan still believed that Phil Jackson was the right man for the job. He even said in an interview that he was going to honor the agreement throughout the whole 5 years. And luckily for us Knicks fans, Dolan had a change of heart when he realized that Phil Jackson wanted to buy out the rest of Carmelo Anthony's contract, which was going to be about somewhere in the range of $50 million, and potentially trading away Kristaps Porzingis. That didn't help Phil at all. Reason number 18. As Stephen A. Smith has been saying for years now, Phil Jackson never wanted to be here in the first place, and it was only here for the money. He was sabotaging the franchise with 3 years worth of stupidity. He probably wanted all along for Dolan to fire him so he could collect the rest of his large sum of money. And reason number 19. The 3 years that Phil Jackson was in charge, the Knicks have lost 166 games total. Ouch. Last but not least, reason number 20. Phil Jackson got rid of possibly the best head coach the Knicks ever had since Jeff Van Gundy and Pat Riley in 2014. If you ever want to look at Phil Jackson's biggest blunders as GM of the New York Knicks, look no further than this move right here. This move overshadowed the Joakim Noah signing by about, say, a football field. Here, Mike Woodson fell into the Knicks' lap and helped turn the franchise around. Woodson was respected by the players that liked playing for him. Woodson was a bona fide head coach that had a great basketball IQ. He had 6 decent seasons with the Atlanta Hawks, and they had more than a few great runs in the playoffs. Phil Jackson gave Woodson his walking papers, and the Knicks had to once again start from scratch. In the 3 years since Phil Jackson and the Knicks parted ways with Coach Woodson, Phil Jackson is now his second head coach. The best season the Knicks had to date so far was last season, when they went 31-51 under new head coach Jeff Hornacek, while Coach Woodson's worst season coaching the Knicks was 37-45. If that wasn't a hard pill to swallow, then I don't know what is. Woodson's time as a head coach was excellent. He led the teams to the playoffs 2 out of 3 years he was there, and technically he wasn't the full-time coach in the first year. He won the division championship. He produced a Sixth Man of the Year. He advanced the Knicks to the Eastern freaking Conference Finals. Another thing I want to bring up, Coach Woodson also produced the Knicks' first 50-win season since the 1999-2000 season, which was 13 years ago. And now the Knicks are in 20 football fields close to reaching 50 wins in a season. And Coach Woodson's replacement, Derek Fisher, and current head coach Jeff Hornacek haven't done fuck all so far. And we all can thank Phil for that one. In hindsight, I'm sure we all can agree that Phil Jackson wasn't expecting things to turn as ugly as they were after he parted ways with Coach Woodson. However, I feel with Phil Jackson's high IQ, he should have known better. He should have known better that Derek Fisher wasn't going to be able to produce the same results that Mike Woodson would have. Plain and simple, guys. Anyways, guys, if you like the video, give it a big thumbs up. If you don't, give it a big thumbs down and kiss my ass. Anyways, guys, I hope you really enjoyed the video. I put a lot of time and effort into this video. It took me a long time to write and record. So anyways, guys, Paul Ye Fantone, and I'm out.